maybe when I was making. All right, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, brother. Good night, everyone. My name is Jose. I am an alcoholic, and I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity. Do you hear me well? Yeah? Okay. I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity to share my journey. It's the first time I get an invitation like this. Um, I live in Costa Rica, but I'm originally from Venezuela. I have been sober for 13 years and a few months. And I have been sober all these years to start my sharing just by the power of the steps and having sponsor. Otherwise, I will have relapse or make other even other mess and bad decisions many times. Being in meetings, sticking to my steps, to the books, having the help of the sponsor, and learning progressively to be in touch with God have been what have kept me safe from that first drink. And well, I understand I have a lot of time to share, so I'm gonna start with some memories from the beginnings. I grew up in a home that was very unstable. Since I am a kid, my father was back and forth coming to the home where I was living with my mom and three sisters and a stepmom in a very tiny apartment in Caracas, Venezuela. And the few visits of my father, he will always arrive with a lot of presents because he used to be working on an airline. And he will come with his amazing uniform and this big luggage full of toys and presents. And I will be on the living room of the apartment, enjoying all these great thing he brought me from all over the world, while he will go straight to my mom's bedroom and then leave. And this was happened many times through my childhood. And in my fourth step, I remember writing down that a few times when he got inside my mom's bedroom, I will set all the toys and gifts outside of his luggage, and I will put myself inside of the luggage, and from the inside, close it to see if by mistake he will take me with him, you know? And I pass out inside of that luggage a few times. And I understood that on my early age, I was willing to sacrifice my own life to go away with my dad. And I was a young kid, like 3, 4 years old. So I start understanding how my personality start to get messed up, by the choices I start to make in a young age. In my father's family, who we visit very rarely, drink was the higher power. Alcohol was the higher power. Everybody drink in those meetings, day, afternoon, nights. And even the kids, we were provided with alcohol. We were provided, they will left some drinks around, the elders, and they will see the kids playing around with alcohol and don't even say anything, just laugh about us. And I remember being drunk, 6, 9 years old, and my uncles laughing about me and making a joke from that situation. So we grew up. I grew up in a family uh, learning that alcohol was actually the right thing to do and use. And I remember being a good kid in general, like my feelings for people, being naive, even to some family members who wasn't really nice with me. And I became aware of that later through the program. But I thought I had a family who loved me. And then I learned that I wasn't living that reality, actually. There was a lot of mistreat, a lot of disrespect, a lot of humiliation. There was a lot of lack of love and education based on respect. And between my childhood and my adolescence, I felt a shift. And it happened in a moment that my father tried to came back to live with us after many years of absence, and he will be at the house very absent, with us there but not very present. And I remember breaking my heart many times trying to approach him, try to get close to him, try to be in friends with him. And when he wasn't absent, he will be very present when he was drunk. So we had a couple of moments. I was already in that age, like smoking cigarettes and drinking, hiding from the family, stealing the alcohol from him and from my mom, and drinking on the roof of the house. You know, trying to escape from the world. I wasn't enjoying life, to be honest, since very young. I wasn't very happy. I wasn't feeling happy with family or with friends. I wasn't very happy at all to be going to school. I used to escape school. And I became, I started this behave when I was a teenager, my 13, 15 years old, escaping home and looking for, night dark corners where I will find kids like me and even adults who will provide some drugs and alcohol to us, and that started becoming my safe place. Every time I was sober, I was having a very big difficulty to relate to people, to socialize. And I remember one day I arrived home from a few days of disappearing, and in the living room of my house was like a big circle of my family. It was my mom, my elder sisters, and my mom two brothers. My mom two brothers, my only two uncles from mom's side, they are part of Alcoholic Anonymous since I have conscience. And they try to tell me, hey, Jose, you have a problem, your attitude, da da da. But I never really pay attention to them. I didn't really like them very much. And that became in the future one of the biggest challenges for me to reach out for help in AA. And I explain why. One of my uncles, being sober, non-drinking, was and is one of the most bitter person I've met in my life. I was afraid of that guy, super afraid. Every time I will see my uncle, I will be like, this is trouble. I never felt respect about him. I always felt fear and distance. And my other uncle, member of AA, was always relapsing with deep and strong depressions and will always end up in my home, in my bedroom, and I will have to sleep in the living room because he will needed to stay with us for a few months until he calmed down his nerves again through pills, medicines, therapies and stuff, and then going back to AA, and then super sweet guy, but always this lack of stability. So when anybody tell me AA, I will say, no way, Jose, literally. So also in the other side of my family, my father's family, the amount of alcohol, the culture of drinking for everything, and having this as a way to say this is how men live, drunk with the beer, with the whiskey and the stuff. And they will always say that my two uncles from my mom's side were like a sissy man because they couldn't handle drinks and all this. So all that information was building up in my brain. So I grew up with that blockage towards AA, with that impossibility to even think that that would be the path for me to get out and find help. So after being many times very deep in drugs and alcohol as a young man, one day I almost took off my life. I almost committed suicide after a breakup with a girlfriend. And I found myself inside of the closet where I used to save my clothing and my stuff in my mom's house. completely covered with a blanket, emptying, in this situation, a couple of cans of the poison to kill cockroach. I was ready to go. And when I wake up from that, I don't know how I did survive to that. Nobody noticed I was there. I just wake up on my own, open the door. I was like vomiting and stuff. I had this tiny little feeling in the center of myself that says, man, thank God I didn't die. Like I felt like I did wanted to do something different. So I start doing some exercises, and I went out to the street and I find jobs and I start moving forward, and my life improved really fast. I was very productive, very creative, very smart. So I find jobs, people love me. And as soon as I was doing great, alcohol. Right after every job schedule, I will be drinking in the bars. And I start losing jobs. And I start thinking, well, if I work out a little more, and I go back to surfing and I do these things, I can improve my life. And I couldn't understand that the problem was in alcohol. Thank God I stopped the drugs, not completely, but I wasn't as dedicated to the drug as I was to alcohol. In that process, I started discovering the career of graphic design, which later became my profession. When I entered in graphic design, I stopped alcohol for a while, and I stick to the marijuana and cigarette. But I fell into a very, very deep depression chapter, very dark, very, very dark. And I discovered that there was a product they sell in pharmacies which had codeine inside. I don't know if I mentioned that with the proper pronunciation. So I discovered the codeine medicine for kids in the pharmacies, and I became addicted to that stuff. So I was getting drunk with codeine. I will have cough syrup for kids 24 hours a day in my backpack. And I start losing control with this stuff, in the sense that I start walking late night in the city of Caracas, completely without direction, under the effect of this medicine all night long, and then losing track of time and losing everything, losing classes in the university. One day I even arrived to the university and I was supposed to open my backpack to bring a presentation to the teacher, and my backpack opened completely, and I don't know, maybe 10 bottles of this medicine fell in the floor in the middle of the class, and everybody was like, hey, Chops, do you have a problem with cough? And everybody making fun of me. I couldn't even walk. I was so drunk with that stuff. So I stopped my studies. I dedicate again to drink and drugs. And one day I say, well, if I leave Venezuela, maybe that's the solution for me. So I went to the US, and I'm going to go to the US to make dollars, and I'm going to show everyone that I am a successful man. Well, 1 year later in the US, I was going back to Venezuela. Every coin I made in the US, I drink it up. Every single thing. I was drunk every day. It was very sad to be myself. And I didn't want it to confess to my family and friends that I failed because I'm a drunk. So I invented that story that, okay, I'm just going to say that I got deported and that I had to come back to Venezuela. And I went back to Venezuela and I tell this lie, and I kept repeating this lie to everyone. I even end up believing that that was the truth of what happened to me. I became such a good liar that I started believing my own lies. And there was a moment where I was having a hard time making a difference what was truth and what was fake about myself, about my expressions, about the stories I will say. And I discovered that it was better to lie than telling the truth, to find a job, to make more money, to find girlfriends, to find everything. So I start building up a life based on lies and alcohol. And I touch a very dark bottom again. In one advertising agency, I found a very good position. And I was actually pretty good at my job. I was a great designer. I was making like campaigns for McDonald's in the whole Latin America, for example, like making good money, and I was being successful, a successful guy. But my boss will find me sleeping hangover under my desk very often. And in that big company, they contract a superior, which was a very attractive woman, and she was set up right in front of my office. And this woman was like, I don't know, possibly 20 years older than me, something like that. And she started flirting with me, and she noticed I was a drunk, and she started inviting me to drink and stuff. She invited me to her apartment. And she says that we couldn't be together because we worked together, but if I quit to the job, I could move with her. So I accept the proposal. And I went to her house to use her car. She was living in a very nice apartment that was on a floor number 9th. And I start finding other jobs, like on my side, on my own. And I was noticing something was happening in me. I was happening to feel that I was afraid to go out of that apartment. I started having difficulties to even get on a bus and go to find a job. I start finding difficult to when my friends call me, hey Jose, we haven't seen you in a while. Let's have a beer or something. Every time I needed to be drunk to feel my nerves, available to socialize. I wasn't able to speak, to give my face to people. It was really horrible to be myself. And I was trying many times. I had to jump out of a bus in the highways in Caracas. There's not like speed, it's so many cars in the same place that everything goes really slow. Many times in the bus, I felt this panic, like everyone in the bus was looking at me, and I was being observed and evaluated and judged. So I needed to jump off those bus, completely sweat, and walk to a place and find a place to buy a beer or something. I start using again sometimes the medicine syrup to calm my nerves. I was medicating myself on my own. Of course, at this point, after a while, this woman wasn't feeling really happy with me. Our apartment had more booze than food. And every time she'll arrive, I'll be drunk. Every time. And one day I remember she arrived and I was depressed, sitting down there, like, taking for granted the rest of my life. And she grabbed me by the arms, screaming to me, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? What can we do? And that kind of like woke me up. She left for a few days. I don't even know where. And I was stuck in that apartment, crying and drinking and listening to Pearl Jam, all volume and up, until I lost my senses and fell in the floor. And once again, until one night, I am listening the same type of sad music, drinking my whiskey with my eyes, smoking my cigarette in my cloud of denial and darkness, and I find myself very, very much at peace and serene, stepping out of the balcony on the 9th floor, sitting down off the border, outside of the balcony with my legs hanging in the air, 9th floors up in a building, And before I share the rest of what happened during my drunkenness, before I close the story of the balcony, of that horrible night, I give a little parenthesis to you. I don't remember how many car accidents I had drunk, because I had too many in Caracas with my friends, drinking, whatever. And I remember something very particular of those car accidents. The car will crash the other car or a tree or something, but my drink will never fall from my hand. I can scratch my head against the glass, against anything, but my beer or my drink will be completely in my hand. I will protect that stuff more than my own life, even in car crash. So going back to the balcony, something really unique happened that night. I was looking to the balconies of the building in front to see if somebody was watching me because I didn't want it really anybody to see me crashing against the floor. And my whiskey glass slipped from my hand. And that's impossible. I will never leave a drink fall from my hand. But something happened there. That drink slipped from my hand, and I saw it in very slow motion, falling 9 floors down and hitting the ground. I woke up and I felt that the floor, the bottom of the Mother Earth was sucking me down. I was so afraid to fall. I felt that was it, and I had a hard time to climb back up the window and fall inside the apartment. But I made it because I'm sharing this with you here tonight, and I fell and I was in fetal position for hours, shaking. And I said, this is it. I need to stop drinking right now. I need to get out of this fucking apartment. I need a new life. I need to do something. I'm really bad. I need help. So the first thing I did was to pour another drink. and I drink until I was erased. Next day, I called my mother after a long time, and she came right away to pick me up. And she took me to her house. I write a letter to this woman and, say goodbye, whatever. And I spent in my mom like probably 3 months inside of a bedroom in a deep depression, non-drinking, in detox from shaking. I wasn't able really to eat. And, when I was starting to feel good again, I start walking out to do exercise. And I say, well, I need to find a job. So I start the cycle again. I went to the streets. I found some calming things in the pharmacies to kind of like handle my nerves. I stopped drinking. I stopped drugging for a while, a lot of cigarettes. And I reconnected with a job. And by connecting with this job, I start making a lot of money, like instantly, because I was good at design. I made a lot of money. I bought a badass car. And I went back to look for this woman of the apartment. And I found her on a bar with another man. So I got really upset. And of course, I called my best friend, Mr. Alcohol. I got drunk. I looked for a whatever girl and I faced her. And it was a messy, horrible night. A friend of mine took my car from me and took me back to my mom's house. And I wake up in my mom's house my mom has like a second floor on her house that is just like a garden, like a yard with a couple of little rooms for storage. I wake up in that floor. I have destroyed everything in my mom's house. Destroyed everything. On the first floor of the house, I was with such a hangover that I was still drunk. I couldn't even walk. My mom and my sister and my stepmom were close up with the gates with lock because I was crazy. And I run away from that place. I run away. I went to the mountains in Venezuela. I was going nuts, crazy. And I went to my AA uncle, the depressive one. I went to him. And I can tell you today that this guy is one of my favorite human beings in the world. Rest in peace. He didn't die sober, sadly. He was a constant relapser, but he knew alcoholism. He knew, and he told me, Jose, stop, please. He told me, I'm not a good example, but stay here and I stay in his house, but I drink there. I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't. The depression got a little better, and I got available to, to stop drinking that much. And I found a job on internet in Panama. The job was called Tranquilo Sailing Tours. So I was supposed to be a bartender on a sailboat. That's the job I found. And I was so in denial with my problem, I say, this is the solution. So I tell a friend who was already living in Costa Rica, I'm going to move to Panama, bro, and he says, Jose, before you go to Panama, come to Costa Rica. I live in Tamarindo Beach. Come, let's hang out, let's go surfing together, and then you go to Panama, So I arrived to Costa Rica, and I never left. I arrived to paradise. Tamarindo is paradise. Free drinks, full of North American people who have so much money that they invite you the drinks every day just for you to be their buddies, Everyone in the bars, were like super friendly. Yeah, you pay tomorrow, Jose, whatever. It was so easy to find sex, drinks, favors, and accommodation. It was paradise. It was my kingdom. I was able to be drunk and to be happy and to be irresponsible and wild, barefoot, disappear from the world. But God have his plans. I fell in love. I fell in love with this beautiful French woman with two beautiful kids. The family of my dream was given to me like a beautiful present. And we start this amazing relationship that I didn't notice. I was actually hurting that people. I thought I was being a cool, nice guy, loving, kind. But I wasn't really aware of what I was doing when I wasn't myself under the effect of alcohol, And one day I noticed, I receive a phone call from this woman, and she tells me, man, I love you so much, but I can't have my kids with a drunk. We have been gone back to New York a few days ago, and I think you haven't even noticed, Jose. So I run to the apartment, and I noticed they were gone. This was around the beginning of December in 2010. I don't remember what I did until the 1st of January. I don't remember what I did those days. I could have done anything. I wake up the 1st of January, laying down on a messy apartment on the floor with a very, very bad smell. And the landlord of the apartment was at the door like this. And I am like, oh, Mr. William, how you doing? And Mr. William says to me, which is a God soul, this is a super gentleman. He says, Jose, I have heard you crying, screaming for days, bringing crazy people here. You haven't paid the rent for over 3 months. I know you're under very difficult circumstances, man, but I need you to leave. I'm not going to charge you what you owe me, but please leave. So I end up in the streets in Costa Rica, from another country. When I went out to the street looking for my friends, I noticed I had no friends. Nobody trusted me. I was a pain in the head of anybody. Every door I knocked to ask for a room, for a bed, everybody was like, come on, Jose, that's enough. Boom. Jose, I have a phone. Boom. Nobody will help me. I was really in a desperate situation. So what I did, I drank. I drink and cry, and I was very, very desperate. And I wake up camping, homeless, on the 5th of January, 2011. I grabbed my surfboard in a deep depression. I was shaking. I couldn't eat. I couldn't surf. I was just in the ocean, just really crying out my life. All I really wanted was to die, honestly, in this moment. I didn't want it to live. My deepest desire was to disappear and that nobody can remember me. Just to don't exist, to be banished from the memory of the earth and everyone and God, and just to vanish like that, you know? And I felt how impossible was that. I was afraid of life, afraid of myself, afraid of everything, you know? And my head was going to explode that day. And I knew there was a narcotic anonymous little room in the town, in the beach town. And I always thought about my uncles. That doesn't work. But where else can I go? To a fucking church? No, I cannot go to the church. I cannot go there. I cannot go here. So I happened to start walking around where the NA room was in a very sad shape. I was real. Anybody could look at me and notice I was devastated, you know. And my thought was a cold Corona beer with a lime. That was in my head the solution for the way I was feeling, you know. And then, like for a rare time, I told myself in my mind, man, you know, that's not true. You drink that freaking beer and then you're going to go for more and more and more, and you're not going to stop. So I was almost screaming this out in the little street when this guy is walking in front of me with some plastic bag in his hands, and he looked at me, and I could notice that with his eyes, in his gaze, I could notice he can understand how I'm feeling somehow, you know. He was looking at me with compassion, and this guy I never saw before, you know. So the guy looked at me and he turns after that eye encounter to the little street that directs to the NA, Narcotic Anonymous room, you know. And I say, well, this is a fucking sign, man. Let's just give it a try, you know. So I walk behind that guy with my surfer all destroyed. And guess where this guy step in the Narcotic Anonymous room. And I was like, what? So I enter, and there was two guys there, his name is Pablo. I'm still friends with him. And another guy who was cleaning the floor. And the guy looked at me like in shock. Oh, this guy came, you know? He just saw me on the corner, you know? And I tell them, hey guys, you know, I'm here just to check this out and see what you guys do here. Is for a friend of mine. And the guy who had the plastic bags in his hands, he says, okay, man, but then if you want, you're a little early. Why don't you go out, have a drink, and come in like half hour? When he says that, I saw again the Corona beer and the whole chain behind it in my head, you know? And I start crying to those two guys. I grab the broom from his hands and I start cleaning the floor with my tears. And since that day, I haven't had a drink, never again. A miracle happened there because my brain, my entire self was completely destroyed. I wasn't in shape to stay sober. I wasn't, not at all, far from it, super far from it, especially mentally. But you know, I kept coming to this room every meeting. And I became the pain in the ass of the group, asking questions, interrupting, you know, pouring coffee out of the, you know, like it was easy for me to be kicked out of that place anytime. I wasn't feeling happy going there. I wasn't very happy with the people. I felt shame every time I walk in to see who saw me in town entering in the place. Then walking back home because I found a very cheap little room super far from the town that I had to walk like an hour and a half. I didn't even have a bicycle, you know. So every night after the meetings, I will walk in front of all the freaking bars, nightlife on, everybody happy, many people looking at me, Jose, come here. And I will be shaking, like hiding, like, you know, running away from that. It was a nightmare for months. Around 4 months of that nightmare, the same guy, Pablo, told me, you know, Jose, I noticed in the sharings, you don't really connect with the people. I noticed you don't really share things in sync with. Will you accept me to invite you to an AA meeting? And all my prejudgmental thoughts about my uncle, my story, my family came like a big wave. And I was like, I don't want to do that, man. This is the worst humiliation for me. You know, I was a homeless guy, completely, completely screwed, and was a humiliation for me to go to AA. That was my feeling, you know. But I say yes, thank God. Because that guy took me the next day to a meeting with my mouth was completely open. Every share in that meeting I identify with. It was impressive. They talk about depression. They talk about panic attacks. They talk about isolation. They talk about drinking, lonely, hiding in the darkness. They talk, you know, about all this stuff that I was relating with. It was magical. And the last guy who speak, his name is Marcial. His share was like, what was something that broke like a big wall in my chest, you know? As soon as these guys finish and sit down, I didn't wait for the meeting to finish. I sit down next to that guy and I told him, can you be my sponsor? You know? And the guy says, okay, Jose, come next Saturday to this and this address. This is not my home group. My home group is right there. I want to meet you right there. I say, okay. I couldn't wait the days, so he told me 4 p.m. in that place. I find the AA room. I sit down there 4 p.m. Nobody. 5 p.m. Nobody. And you know how patient we are in our early days of sobriety, right? Man, this guy played me a joke. I stand up around 5:40, like completely upset. As soon as I stand up to walk away, he arrives. And I wanted to scream everything on his face, but I didn't. You know, I wanted so bad to stay sober that I stay with him. I help him to clean the toilet, clean the room, make the coffee, and prepare the room for the meeting. And he told me, okay, Jose, if you want to recover with me, we're going to work for a long time. We work something that is called the steps. He started talking to me about the program. And I was like, well, definitely, I want this. And I say, how long this will take for me to be fine, you know? And he laughed like, and he says, well, we're going to work, you know, there's 3 legacies, you know, steps, tradition, concept. We're going to work around 5 years, something like this. And I was like, what? Man, I'm desperate, you know, like this is too much. And I asked him, what about if we work the double? And he says, well, it's very easy. If we work the double, it will take 10 years. And, you know, so we start working. I'm going to tell you guys, Marcial saved my life. He saved my life. You know, I hear from other AA member later on that meeting in the other group where I hear him for the first time was all planned by him when he hear about me in NA. It was all planned. The day I wait for him 2 hours and a half, 3 hours out there, he was in the other side of the road in his car looking to see how much interest I had to stay sober. When I was ready to walk away, he drove towards me. He did stuff like that with me. His girlfriend that I didn't know it was his girlfriend, offered me an apartment for something like $15 a month, which in that area doesn't exist. Later on, I knew it was his girlfriend. So this guy saved my life, set me a home. He was giving me food. He grows animals, you know, he have pigs and stuff. So I will go to his farm to clean the shed of the pigs in trade of rice and beans, and then sit down with the 12-step book. This was for at least the first whole year. Then I found a job. And also my ego started growing in AA. And I start judging him, criticizing him, and it became really tough. He cut me off when I was ready to deliver the 5th step with him. And I got really afraid. Who the hell is going to help me now? Because nobody else in the area was working the steps as him, you know? And so this guy is not an easy guy. He's not a nice guy. He's very tough. He's very offensive and aggressive and violent. So when I blame him to go back to the steps, he says, fuck off. And every time I reach the group, the AA group, to join Hayden, the 12 study meetings, he will close the door with a lock for me to don't enter. Stuff like this I experienced. This is the kind of guy who sponsored me my first years, But I needed my program so much that I sit down under the window to listen for weeks. And he knew. So one day he reopened the door and let me in. So I finished the steps and everything with him. It took us good 7 years. We finished the stuff. I felt an important change within myself, my personality, my perception of the world. I had zero desire for drinking. I still had deep depression, mental troubles, emotional troubles, and I was craving to go to a psychiatric or somebody professional to help me. And he will always say, no, 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 just the steps, But on that 7th year, I told him, man, I had enough from this hell. I'm done. And I shook his hand. I say, thank you for saving my life. I'm gone. And when that happened, the way I didn't notice that, but later, but this guy stopped going to the meetings. And I became sponsor of like 9 people there. And I became the head of the home group. And that saved my life. Having on my back the whole home group, all the sponsees, the literature, the meeting, the visit to other groups, And another parenthesis I will make there, when I was on my 3rd year of recovery with him, we were sitting down in front of the ocean one day speaking, and this guy show up there and tell Marcial in front of me, hey man, it's been a while. I'm just coming out of jail. I need your help, because if you don't help me to recover and do something different, I'm going to go back to kill, steal, and sell drugs, man. So what Marcial did, he touched my shoulder and he says, here is your sponsor. That's when I was 3 years sober with like 4 steps, Well, I did that parenthesis because that guy stayed. And we were working for years in that home group. He became my right hand, and we started doing a lot of amazing things together. We went to the jail where he was during a year and a half to bring the program in the jail. It was super intense. I'm not really willing to do that again, to be honest. It's scary. It's very intense, but I'm deeply grateful that I got to do it for a year and a half. So I went through all that process, and I was sponsorless all that time. So I was developing my own understanding again, with my doing things my way, in the program's way, but in Jose's way. So I start growing a lot of spiritual ego. And I start becoming pretty harsh on the groups, on the meetings. And, that took me to a dark place again. Nobody wanted Jose in AA. I didn't want anybody. I start feeling lost again. So I fell back in depression. I was assisting just to few meetings in AA. I was in very big danger. So I had this clear, because the work with Marcial worked so well that I didn't went for drink again. The steps saved my life. But I went to a doctor, and the doctor gave me a recipe for antidepressive. And it shifted me in one day. It wasn't me. I was affected by this medicine seriously. I came back to the meetings speaking all happy and positive, but because of the effect of this stuff, And I started a project where I was making a lot of money. And I met a pretty sexy girl, and without knowing her very well, I just asked her to marry me, and we got married. And I got to a big credit to buy a house, and I bought her a car, and I went crazy. I went wild and without boundaries, in sobriety. Thank God I didn't went back to drink, With that woman, I experienced some things very harsh, in that chapter. Going through that, experiment, I experienced an eye cancer, and I became blind for a while, and I couldn't work. And it was, I was in an unhappy marriage, blind, going through this condition. It was the perfect situation for a relapse. It was perfect. And thank God I transcended all that stuff in sobriety. I kept coming to my meetings with my eyes blind. I kept coming, even knowing that I was being an asshole in the meeting. I came to the rooms. I admitted to them, man, I'm being an asshole. I'm sorry to everyone. It was very difficult to do, but that saved my life. That made me remain in AA. And in those circumstances, I moved to this town where I live now, which is in the mountains, is my new home. And through that transition of healing the cancer behind a couple of miracles, I got the decision to stop using the antidepressive. And instead of using that, to use my program and pray as I could. And guys, it was very difficult, very, very difficult, but I overcame it with the program, and I got divorced. I lost everything I had. I end up here sleeping in a store. They gave me some space, running the AA meetings. Then hit COVID, zero opportunities for job. It was a miracle, everything I did on those days. But going through that experience, keeping the room open, keep staying sober and doing the service, I made an old guy who offered me this place where I'm speaking to you right now. He says, Jose, I've seen you doing things in town. I see the kind of guy you are. I want you to buy me this property. And I laugh in his face, man, I have so much debts. I don't have one coin. I cannot buy even shoes right now. And he says, you don't understand what I mean. Why don't you just move there, make that property work, and then you start paying me as you can? I believe, and I'm sure actually, that this was my higher power. Nobody else can do something like this for me. Suddenly, I had a home. I kept my home group open. And it's been 5 years of that little group I opened in this town. The first 2 years of that home group open, it was just pretty much myself going there. Nobody else, but I will open that door Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week, doing my prayers. And after a while of doing that, people start coming. Not many, but a few. And I start having real meetings. And in one of those real meetings, a guy showed up from Ireland and did such a powerful share. And I asked him if he could be my sponsor, because I was without a sponsor for so long. And he says yes, and we've been working for a couple of years. It's so important to have my sponsor back. It's so important. I'm so glad that God kept me the strength to keep that door open. The room became 5 years recently. That's where actually I met Chuck and Sue, who invited me to this meeting to share, to do this long share. Is the first time I do. Very often I'm feeling like, am I speaking too much? I'm not used to share this long. And so today, after so many challenges and stuff, I keep alive. I remain sober by the grace of God, through this program. That guy, Marcos, on the beach that came out of jail and asked me to be my sponsee, is still my sponsee. I have been his sponsor for 10 years. He is right now, we were talking just before this meeting, he's in the hospital fighting cancer. He got a surgery where they took one full lung and a half of the other one. So he's just breathing with half lung right now. But he's very optimistic, full of program, of sobriety, of gratitude. It's such a big gift to have this guy in my journey in AA. By the grace of internet, I have a few sponsees online in Serbia, in the US, in other places in Costa Rica. I also have a couple of sponsees in presence. And I have my home group, which is my main home. This is the place that I just come to rest. And I have a new life today. I'm not meaning that I don't have difficulties. I have a lot of those, family, work, and stuff. But right now, depression doesn't paralyze me anymore. I feel nervous to speak in meetings like this, but I do it. I am able to have a life. And even going through harsh things still today, God, this higher force, provide me with the ability and the serenity to go through these things in sobriety. And today I feel a lot of clarity, guys, that I am not able to do this on my own. I need you. I need you guys. I need AA. I need my sponsor. I need the sponsees. I need my big book, my 12 steps, my concepts. I am right now doing a lot of services in the structure in Costa Rica with a lot of insecurity, but that is providing me with a lot of happiness as well and new experiences. AA is the best thing that happened to me. And in these 13 years and a few that I have been in AA, I have tried other easier, softer ways, other spiritual path with indigenous, with shamans, with stuff in the jungle and things like that. But always, with them in their ceremonies, they will offer me like ayahuasca and other herbs and stuff. And I will always say, no, I'm a sober person. And they will be like, what the hell? So in between looking for an escape, I never was looking for an escape. I was just reassuring the magnificent program. I wasn't aware of that. But our program is the most beautiful, spiritual, powerful journey I could have never dreamed of. And I'm deeply thankful to God for have lead me to AA. Thank you, God, for AA and for our 89 years old that we celebrate yesterday. Thank you for this group. Thank you for this opportunity, guys. And with this, I'm just gonna let it right there. Thank you for your tolerance and patience to hear my story, guys. God bless you all. And yeah, gracias.
All right. That was awesome. Awesome.